Welcome back, everyone. The last time we talked about the Horus Heresy, we were going over the traitor legions. And now it's time to talk about the Primarchs. Primarchs in the Horus Heresy were considered the demigods of war. To face them in combat was an impossible challenge, and when they were in command of the field, they could smash away an army in front of them. And you can field these powerful characters on the table if you so desire. So this is a guide to help you decide if a Primarch is something you want to bring to your game of Horus Heresy. Now, something to note. Primarchs are their own unit type within Horus Heresy, and that means they get their own set of special rules and conditions. First, if your army includes a Primarch, they must be your warlord. Second, Primarchs get all the following special rules I'm showing on screen here. It doesn't matter if it's Alarius or Lionel Johnson. All Primarchs get these special rules. And last but not least, Primarchs can never suffer from negative modifiers to their stats. Even if something would force them to fire on snapshots, they fire at their regular ballistic skill. As well, a Primarch is a pretty expensive unit to bring, and is considered a Lord of War, meaning that Primarchs cannot be more than 25% of your army. So that means if you were playing a 2,000 point game, you can't bring them, period. But now that we have that out of the way, let's get into each Primarch, what makes them special, and how they help your legions on the table. Why you gotta keep secrets, man? Lionel Johnson is the Primarch of the Dark Angels Legion, and he is a Primarch who wants to be hunting down your enemy's warlord and your opponent's more deadly units. Lionel Johnson gets resistance to psychic powers, can choose to charge a flat 8 inches instead of rolling, and if he's reduced to 4 wounds or 2 wounds, he gains up to 1 or 2 extra attacks. He becomes extremely dangerous the closer to death he gets. His armor grants him a reroll to the first invulnerable save he fails during each of your turns. He also gets options for which sword he brings, the Lion's Sword or Wolf's Blade. The Lion's Sword is a massive sword that, although it uses Johnson's base strength, it makes up for it with AP1 and by giving him extra dice against vehicles and wounds on 2s unless the target is a vehicle or building. It also has instant death. The Wolf's Blade trades armor penetration for 2+ strength and being more equipped to deal with groups of enemies because of Reaping Blow, with Reaping Blow giving him 2 extra attacks, allowing him to reroll wound rolls, and can still hurt better armored enemies if he wounds on a 4 or higher. So you can either go with the more consistent Lion's Blade, or the potential to do more damage Wolf's Blade. Lion's ranged weapons are grenades and a special plasma pistol. He gets the Fusel Actineus, a 2-shot plasma pistol that is twin-linked and has the blind special rule, meaning that if a unit he shoots at fails an initiative test, they are blinded. It also rends targets on a 3+. His stasis grenades can only be activated when he charges. When you choose to use them, your opponent rolls an initiative test, and if they pass, nothing happens. If they fail, that unit takes a -1 to their initiative for that combat, meaning that Lionel Johnson can guarantee going first in most engagements. Lionel wants to hunt down the best units in your opponent's army and cut them down. Though, much like a hunting animal, if he's pinned or in a bad spot, he becomes more ferocious to try and get out of it, making for a very dangerous close-range Primarch. You know, I'd let him ruin my life. Fulgrim is the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, and he gets 2 versions of himself. However, we will only be covering his regular self, as his demonic form is not within the regular Traitor Legion book, and we are just covering the basics for newcomers. Fulgrim is a Primarch who wants to hunt down enemy characters and challenge them. His abilities make it easier for him to get into melee combat and take advantage of challenges. First, if any unit tries to react to Fulgrim in any way, they must first pass a leadership test. If they don't, their reaction fails. If it passes, they can proceed as normal. In melee, when Fulgrim accepts a challenge, or gives a challenge, he gets extra attacks depending on the difference between his initiative and his opponent's, meaning that if his opponent has an initiative of 5, he gets 3 extra attacks. As well, his armor gives him a 2+ save normally, and a 3+ invulnerable save in melee combat. Of course, much like the rest of his legion, Fulgrim gets to add 1 to the amount of wounds caused in any combat he takes part of, so you can never have a tie for deciding who won combat. He also has the Crusader special rule, which means that when making a sweeping advance, he rolls 2 dice instead of 1 and takes the higher roll. It is most likely no one is getting away from Fulgrim. However, he only gets to select 1 melee weapon out of the 2 he has, the Blade of Lair or the Fire Blade. He does get a special Volkite pistol though called Firebrand. The Blade of Lair at first looks unimpressive with its stat of Strength User, but it's all the abilities that it gets that makes it dangerous in Fulgrim's hands. It gives him a +1 initiative, which if you remember earlier means he'll usually get an additional attack. It always wounds on 2s against infantry or monsters, and allows you to reroll 1 failed hit roll, which is usually all you'll be missing anyway. Taking Fireblade, you are trading away extra attacks and wounding on 2s to get 1 point of extra strength for your attacks and instant death on 5+. You still get to reroll a single miss, and it's very clear the Fireblade is meant to help Fulgrim kill stuff that is just as tough or tougher than him. So when taking him, make sure your army is built to handle what he isn't looking to fight directly himself. Fulgrim is a challenge king, wanting to hunt down heroes and other Primarchs to show off his incredible ability. He is usually always a good option to take when you want to cut the head off your opponent's army. However, where he falters is that he isn't doing much if he isn't in melee, so get him into melee combat as fast as possible.
He's so cool, but he's just so fucking weird!
Perabo is Primarch of the Iron Warriors and is the Siege Master, although his rules are more for an engineer and mechanic role within the army, which, if you remember the Traitor Legion video, makes sense with the unit you want to bring him with. Perabo wants his army to make a non-stop push up the board. His abilities allow for all friendly units within the army to roll 3 dice for morale or pinning tests and discard the highest result. It also gives you an additional reaction during the shooting phase. This makes Perabo a great commander for wanting to rush the board with more infantry-based armies. He comes equipped with the Logos, a special suit of armor that allows him to ignore night fighting, gives him a 2+ regular save and a 3+ invulnerable save, and allows him and his unit to use the intercept reaction for free. This doesn't mean he can make more than 1 reaction himself per turn, but it does allow you to go over the normal army-wide reaction limit. He gets 2 special weapons, but you can only get the second weapon if you pay a price for it. Perabo starts with the Logos Array, a wrist-mounted bolt weapon that allows him to reroll hit rolls and wound rolls, can pin the enemy down, and reduces leadership by 1 for enemies hit with it. It can also be used in melee, but it only has a decent buff to strength, and nothing else going for it. The weapon you do want to give him all the time is Forgebreaker. For the cost of a 35-point upgrade, Perabo gets a Thunderhammer that not only forces your opponent to roll twice to save per wound from it, but also gets to roll for extra penetrating hits on 3+, meaning that if he charges a vehicle, it will most likely die. Of course, the downside is he is going last in a combat due to the weapon being unwieldy. But hey, small price to pay to have that insane killing potential. Perabo is a walking, talking tank, able to withstand the toughest hits, repair his robot bodyguard unit, and keeps his army going in a non-stop push up the board. He is a master of the siege, and he will make you remember it. Guy's not only mastered riding bikes, he's mastered roasting people alive! Jagai Khan is the Primarch of the White Scars, and has 2 profiles, one for on foot, and one for when he's riding his bike. Just note, there is no official model for him riding his bike. Why, GW? Why does the guy whose legion is famous for riding bikes not have his damn bike as a model? We are focusing solely on him being on foot for this video. Jagai is built to be fast. All of his special abilities revolve around being able to ignore most things that impede movement, and being able to weave in and out of melee combat. The first of his many abilities allows him and a unit he is a part of to come in from outflanking reserve without having to roll, which means in turn 2 or 3, you can have Jagai appear with his boys right behind your opponent's army, ready to cause problems. While Jagai is on the board, all White Scar units get Furious Charge 1, meaning that when they make a charge, they get to add 1 to their strength characteristic. As well, he allows for the army to make an additional reaction during their movement phase, so long as he remains on the table. Jagai comes equipped with the Wildfire Panoply, a suit of armor giving him a 2+ regular save and a 3+ invulnerable save during the movement and assault phase, though he just gets a regular 4+ invulnerable save in the shooting phase. He also comes equipped with the White Tiger Dao sword and Storm's Voice pistol. The White Tiger Dao is a nasty blade, giving Jagai +1 initiative and +2 strength on a charge, and also causing instant death on 5+ to wound, and giving a free reroll to a single missed hit. Then there's Storm's Voice, a nasty Volkite pistol that not only has a rending 5+, meaning it can hurt most targets on 5 or higher to wound, It also has concussive. Anyone who is wounded by this weapon must take a leadership check. If they fail, they take a debuff to their weapon skill equal to what the concussive value was. A nasty thing to have happen to a unit, but very good for Jagai when he wants to charge an enemy unit. Jagai is the master of hit and run. He wants to weave in and out of combat, killing important targets, then moving on to the next target while his forces clean up what he leaves behind. If I bark at him, will he bark back? Or stab me? Leman is Primarch of the Space Wolves Legion, and he is a man who wants to be slaughtering hordes of infantry or other Primarchs. His abilities allow him to, once per game, declare Howl of the Death Wolf, an army-wide buff that gives all Space Wolf units in the army +1 to their movement. If the enemy army has Space Wolf units, they must make an immediate pinning check. As well, while Leman is on the field, all Space Wolf units get +1 to charge and get an additional reaction during the assault phase, made for a nasty charge phase for your opponent. Leman Russ comes equipped with a whole lot of weapons. His armor, and I'm going to butcher this name, the Lorgar, gives him a 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable, but if a weapon has plasma, flamer, or melted attacks, the invulnerable save is increased to 3+. As well, models in base-to-base contact with him get a -1 to hit him on a turn in which he charges. Leman gets 2 melee weapon options to pick from when in combat. The Axe of Hellwinter is meant to help Leman cut through hordes of infantry, as it gets additional attacks when he's in base-to-base contact, and allows you to reroll glancing hits against vehicles to try and get penetrating hits. And then there is the Sword of Balanite, a blade meant to take on more elite units and Primarchs, as it has instant death on a wound of 4+, forces the defending model to save 2 additional times per wound Leman causes, and if Leman wins combat, forces the enemy unit to roll 3 dice for the leadership instead of 2. A nasty sword. His pistol isn't anything special, just a bolt pistol that has 3 shots and rending 6+. He clearly wants to be in melee. Much like his brother Lionel Johnson, Leman is a hunter, but he doesn't care if it's smaller or bigger than him. He will happily kill anything that comes his way. Your history's impressive, but you still haven't confirmed if you can read. Rogal Dorne is Primarch of the Imperial Fist Legion. He is a master of defensive strategies, and he is the perfect man for any defensive army you build around him. While Dorne is on the field, any charges made against him are counted as disorganized charges. As well, all Imperial Fist units get to use his leadership stat as their own, count as having scored an additional point when deciding who won melee combat, and before the game begins, you get to pick one of the phases to get an additional reaction in for the rest of the game, though it has to be that phase and that phase only for the rest of the game. So if you pick the shooting phase for your additional reaction, you can only get that additional reaction in the shooting phase. Dorne comes equipped with the Auric Armor, a special suit of armor that gives him a 2+ regular save and a 4+ invulnerable save. But the best part about it is that any weapon, regardless of its strength, can't wound him on anything better than a 4+, meaning that even if a weapon doubles his toughness, it can only wound him on a 4 or higher. If a weapon is weaker though, apply wounding normally. Dorne also gets 2 weapons, Storm's Teeth and the Voice of Terra. Storm's Teeth is a dangerous chainsword that has a Reaping Blow 2, instant death on a wound of 6+, and allows you to reroll wound rolls. Voice of Terra is a bolt weapon with the stats of an improved but shorter range heavy bolter that gets 3 shots and rends targets on 5+. Dorne is the master of mobile gun lines, keeping his men organized and ready to react to any given situation. He is the wall that his enemies will break upon. He's flaying people again. Mods! Hit him with the nightmare visions. Conrad Kurz is Primarch of the Night Lords Legion, a truly terrifying monster on the field of battle. But unlike his brothers, he doesn't want to be in a straight-up fight. He prefers to demoralize and prey upon those weaker than him. Conrad's abilities are built around affecting enemy morale. When Conrad is able to wipe out an enemy unit completely, any unit that can draw a line of sight to the slaughter must make an immediate pinning check. As well, so long as Conrad is on the field, all Night Lords infantry, cavalry, and dreadnoughts gain night vision and bloody murder, an ability that adds +1 to charge if the enemy unit is pinned or falling back. Also, all Night Lords gain immunity to any units or weapons that contain the Fear special rule, because nothing is scarier than Conrad. He is also our first Psychic Primarch, though he is locked down to 1 spell, called Glimpse of Death. During the assault phase, you can make a psychic check for Conrad, rolling equal to or below a 7 with 2d6, giving Conrad for that combat Feel No Pain 4+, and an additional attack. But if he rolls above a 7, he takes a Perils of the Warp attack. Conrad comes equipped with the Nightmare Mantle, a suit of armor that grants him a 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable save. In addition, it allows him to ignore all terrain modifiers, and when he advances, he adds 12 to his movement automatically instead of adding his initiative. He gets 2 weapons, Widowmaker and Mercy and Forgiveness. Mercy and Forgiveness are a pair of lightning claws that gives Conrad an additional attack, as they are a pair of weapons, and they cause instant death on a 4+ and allow you to reroll wound rolls. Widowmaker is a strange gun that has 3 shots at running 4+, which fits the whole going after infantry strategy Conrad likes. Conrad is a terror on the battlefield. Literally, his entire MO is going after infantry, wiping them out, and scaring everyone else to make it easier to hunt them down. He isn't good at fighting other Primarchs, but he is very good at getting away from things that will hurt him. Man, if anyone could give a Catholic an aneurysm, it's this vampiric guy right here. Sanguineus is the Primarch of the Blood Angels and a true angel on the battlefield, inspiring his men around him to perform greater feats of heroism to keep up with him. First off, you get to choose during each of your turns if Sanguineus is using his wings or not. If you choose to use his wings, this changes his movement stat to 14, and he is able to fly over everything, whether it be buildings, friendly or enemy units, or impassable terrain. However, Sanguineus can't end his movement on impassable terrain or within 1 inch of a unit that he is not a part of. Furthermore, he treats all difficult terrain as dangerous, and you must do a dangerous terrain test if he ends his movement in either difficult or dangerous terrain. Sanguineus' abilities give any unit he joins or is within 6 inches of him a +1 to combat to see who wins, and as long as Sanguineus is on the field, any unit that deployed as part of a deep strike or has jump packs gets +1 to their weapon skill. Also, the whole army gets an additional reaction during the movement phase, so long as Sanguineus is on the field. Sanguineus gets the Regalia Resplendent armor, which gives him a 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable save, and allows him to reroll invulnerable saves during a charge. Sanguineus can either bring the Blade in Carmine, or the Spear of Telesto and the Moon Silver Blade. The Blade in Carmine is built to handle any infantry or cavalry unit. He gets 2 additional attacks with it when he charges, and if Sanguineus is outnumbered, he gets an additional 2 attacks, along with having instant death on a wound roll of 5+, and rerolling wound rolls. He also gets 1-shot melt-a-pistol called Infernus. However, if you take the Spear of Telesto and the Moon Silver Blade, you get a more anti-tank and challenge-based set of weapons. The Spear grants an additional penetrating hit if you roll equal to or higher than the Exoshock number on the weapon. The Moon Silver Blade has blind and gives Sanguineus +1 to his initiative during a charge, and if it attacks any unit with a Psyker or Demon unit type, any wound caused by the blade counts as having made 2 wounds instead of 1. As well, you can choose to throw the Spear of Telesto as a shooting attack, but if you do so, you can't use the spear at all for the rest of the game. Sanguineus is the angel of the battlefield, flying to where he is needed and slaughtering anything that is stupid enough to get in his way. Did you know that you can get banned from the Iron Hands subreddit for making head jokes? Guess they were ahead of the game. Ferris is the Primarch of the Iron Hands, and despite him being the first Primarch to die in the Horus Heresy, he is still playable in the tabletop game. Ferris sadly doesn't have a lot going on for him. He, much like Perabo, is a mechanic. He gets firing protocols, which allows him to fire multiple weapons. His only ability gives all Iron Hands infantry Feel No Pain 6+, and if it's a vehicle, it gets It Will Not Die 5+. Furthermore, he gains an additional reaction during the assault phase. Note, if your units already have Feel No Pain or It Will Not Die, he instead adds +1 to those abilities. Ferris comes equipped with a Plasma Blaster, Graviton Shredder, and Heavy Flamer, and he dons the Medusan Carapace, a set of armor that gives him a 2+ normal save and a 3+ invulnerable save. He may not get the special stuff other Primarchs get, but it's solid and consistent, much like Ferris is. Ferris gets a servo arm for melee, a weapon that swings at strength 8, AP 2, but makes his swing last in combat. The true melee weapon he has, though, is Forge Breaker, which, if you can refer back to Perabo, as it's literally the same weapon. Ferris, being the first Primarch to die, left him very little to work with, but bringing him makes your Iron Hands even more durable and allows your vehicles a better chance to heal at the end of every turn, proving that he is a master of the machine. Listen, all I'm saying is that his name is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Angron is Primarch of the World Eaters Legion. A raging whirlwind of rage and murder, his sole focus is to get into the enemy line and start ripping and tearing into it. Angron gets hatred everything, meaning he gets to reroll all failed hit rolls in the first round of combat. His abilities also help maximize his close quarters killing. The Red Sands ability has you declare a challenge to every character and Primarch in the combat Angron is in, and you get to decide the order of who goes into the challenge, not your opponent. However, if one of the models being chosen is a Primarch, Angron must fight them first. While Angron is on the field, he gives all World Leaders a 6+ Feel No Pain, and also Adamantium Will 3+, giving his forces a massive defensive advantage against Psyker-led armies. He also gives his army an extra reaction during the movement phase. Angron comes equipped with the Armor of Mars, an armor that gives him a 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable save. He also gets the Butcher's Nails, which make it so that at the end of each of your turns, Angron permanently gets an additional attack up to a max of 4 additional attacks. As well, any attacks against him in combat are always treated at weapon skill 3, regardless of that unit's weapon skill, though remember, Primarchs are an exception to this. Angron gets 3 weapons, the Spike Furnace, which is a 2-shot mastercrafted plasma pistol, and the 2 chain axes Gore Father and Gore Child. They both are chain weapons that give Armor Bane, instant death on a wound of 3+, and reroll wound rolls. Angron is, as I said, a murder tornado. He wants to get stuck into melee combat as fast as possible and ping-pong himself from one combat to another in a flurry of gore and death. Listen, I think Rome's fascinating too, but you shouldn't style your life after them! Robute Guilliman is the Primarch of the Ultramarines Legion. A statesman as well as a warrior, he is solely focused on leading his men and commanding them. Guilliman can fight, but as I said, he'd rather be giving orders and commanding in the center of the battlefield. His preternatural strategy ability allows you to, once per turn, pick one of the 4 following abilities. You can't pick the same ability in the following turn, but you can pick the ability again a turn after. This gives you an unimaginable flexibility with your army. While Guilliman is on the field, all Ultramarines get +1 to the leadership. As well, you get to pick which phase your army gets an additional reaction in at the start of the game. He also gets to reroll hit rolls of 1 if a challenge he is stuck in goes past its first round. Guilliman comes equipped with the Armor of Reason, giving him a 2+ regular save and a 4+ invulnerable save, but he is allowed to reroll the first failed invulnerable save in each phase of the game. He also gets the Arbitrator, a bolt weapon at strength 6 with 2 shots and rending 5. He gets 2 melee weapons, the Gladius Incandor and the Fist of Dominion. The Gladius is a power sword that has Shred, Instant Death 5+, and Mastercrafted, while the Fist of Dominion is a strength 10 power fist that, although forces Guilliman to fight last, gets Brutal 2, which means that your opponent has to roll 2 additional dice to save each wound. Guilliman is a leader, and though he can fight, he is more comfortable being the midline leader, guiding his army into battle and controlling the flow of it. He can do some serious damage in melee, though. Look, you're the reason major tournaments now have a showering rule, okay? Mortarion is the Primarch of the Death Guard, a seriously tough and war of attrition focused character on the table. Mortarion has a long list of special abilities, with a lot of hatred towards Psyker units and resistances to those units. During the shooting phase, in lieu of shooting, he can instead teleport himself and the unit he is a part of anywhere within 10 inches of the location he started from, so long as there is space and they are at least 3 inches away from enemy models. And if he charges the same turn he does this, it counts as having a disordered charge. Any attacks against Mortarion that is Rending, Poison, or Fleshbane can only activate on a natural roll of 6, regardless of what the rules say. Though, if he is a part of a unit, he loses this ability until he is alone again. As well, while Mortarion is on the field, all units within the Death Guard army get to ignore all penalties to their leadership caused by fear or shell shock, and suffer no negatives to leadership in melee combat. He also gives an additional reaction in the assault phase. Mortarion wears the Barbaran Plate. It gives him a 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable save. He also has the melee weapons Silence and the gun Lantern. Silence is a power weapon that causes instant death, Sunder, and has Reaping Blow 2, while Lantern is a plasma gun with Sunder. Mortarion is the Grim Reaper of the battlefield. Everywhere he walks, he brings death. And with him being extremely tough and able to shrug off even the hardest of blows, it makes him one of the toughest Primarchs to bring. How is it when you're told to do nothing, you still somehow fuck that up too? Magnus the Red is the Primarch of the Thousand Suns and is one of the most dangerous spellcasters you can bring to the table. Magnus is the Psyker of the Traitor Legions, and his Arch Sorcerer ability gives him access to every psychic discipline in the core psychic list. And in the shooting phase, he can choose any ranged psychic power as his shooting attack. He can even use his Legion special ability, and doesn't need to roll any tests for the psychic powers that come from his Legion's ability. Another ability he has is the Eye of the Crimson King. It ignores all line of sight blocking when it comes to his psychic abilities. Furthermore, while Magnus is on the field, he grants all infantry that are Psykers Adamantium Will 6+, or if they already had it, a +1 to that ability, and any friendly unit that suffers Perils of the Warp reduces the damage they take by 1 to a minimum of 1. They also get an additional reaction during the assault phase. Magnus comes in donning the Horned Ryman armor, giving him 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable, and also reducing the damage from destroyer weapons by 1 to a minimum of 1. He also gets a blade that I cannot fucking pronounce for the life of me, and Psi-Fire Serpenta. The Blade of On is a force melee weapon, which means passing a psychic test in melee doubles the weapon's strength, so you should always be popping off force if you can. The Psi-Fire Serpenta is a plasma gun that is also force, so again, if you are choosing to shoot it instead of using psychic powers, always activate force. Magnus is the supreme spellcaster on the table. He will always want to abuse his psychic powers and show everyone why he is the scariest damn thing on the table. Though be careful, anti-psyker units can really mess up his day. The finest example of a man who tries to inflict patricide, only to end in filicide. Horus the War Master, Primarch of the Sons of Horus Legion, and overall supreme commander of all the Traitor Legions. He is the most deadly unit any Traitor force can bring to the table. Horus gets the Master of War ability. Once per game, he can give his army one additional reaction in every phase. He also gets Master of Weapons, which makes it so that during the assault phase, Horus can only get hit by rolls of 4+, regardless of what the user's weapon skill is. Furthermore, unlike other units who have to dedicate their attacks to a single target, Horus can spread his attacks to anyone he wants to who is in melee combat with him, but you must declare which attacks are going where before you roll to hit. All Sons of Horus units on the table get stubborn and a +1 to their leadership so long as Horus is on the field. But for 400 points more, you can upgrade Horus to his Ascended form. An upgrade that gives him Feel No Pain 4+, Rage 3, a Dark Fate, the ability to get back up with a single wound remaining after dying once, gets to double his strength and toughness once per battle at the cost of taking Perils of the Warp at the end of the fight phase, and can even have units upgraded to the Corrupted subtype, which is its own ball of problems. He is truly a fucking nightmare. Horus gets the Serpent Scales armor, giving him a 2+ normal save and a 3+ invulnerable save. But he also gets the Cognis Signum, which gives him and the unit he is a part of night fighting. He also gets the special mace Worldbreaker and the War Master's Talon. Worldbreaker is a nasty weapon that, although forces Horus to go last, gives him Sunder and Brutal too, while the Talon has a melee attack that gives Shred and Defilgrate, and a shooting attack that is Strength 5 and Twin Linked. Horus is the Primarch. He is the ultimate model to bring on the table, and it's pretty much proven that any Primarch going up against him loses. Double so if you upgrade him to his Ascended form. Horus is the War Master, and you better not forget it. I don't know what prompted you to be part of the biggest 3 assholes in all of Horus Heresy, but here we are. Lorgar Aurelian is the Primarch of the Wordbearers Legion, and yeah, Following up Horus, he will look unimpressive, but he is dangerous in his own right as the original traitor. Lorgar is a psyker, though he only gets access to the thaumaturgy and divination psychic disciplines. He also gets It Will Not Die on 4+, and Crusader to make up for his lack of options. While a unit is with Lorgar, they get Fearless and Feel No Pain 4+, and once per battle, you can select one friendly infantry or cavalry unit within 18 inches to gain the same ability until the end of the turn. As long as Lorgar is on the field, all units on the field who can draw a line of sight to him get +1 to their charge rolls and use his leadership for any morale or pinning checks they have to make. He also gives you an additional reaction in the assault phase. You can also upgrade him to have his transfigured form, which gives you access to the Anathemata and Diabolism psychic disciplines, and allows you to take demons in your army list. They can't deploy on the table though, and have to come in from their own special version of Deep Strike rules. Lorgar dons the Armor of the Word, giving him a 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable save, but gives him a 3+ invulnerable save against psychic attacks and force weapons, and any wound inflicted by said attacks causes the attacker to take Perils of the Warp. He also gets the Graviton Pistol Devotion, which gives Concussive 2, Haywire, and Mastercrafted, and he gets Illuminarium, a power mace that has Armor Bane and Brutal 2. Lorgar is a dark preacher, spurring his soldiers to incredible acts that will leave your opponent speechless as you push through even the worst they can throw at you. So you do understand that lighting people on fire is a war crime, right? Vulcan is Primarch of the Salamander's Legion, and one of the toughest bastards you can bring. Second really only to Horus and Perabo. Though he wasn't able to participate too much in the heresy, he is still a force to be reckoned with. Being one of the toughest Primarchs stat-wise, Vulcan gets It Will Not Die 4+. As well, he gives all Salamander's infantry on the table Stubborn, and an additional reaction during the shooting phase. He dons the Draken Scale, a set of armor that gives a 2+ normal save and a 3+ invulnerable save, but also lets you reroll failed armor saves against attacks that came from flame or volkite weapons. He comes equipped with the Dawnbringer and the Furnace Heart as well. Dawnbringer is a mastercrafted thunderhammer that has instant death and armor bane, while Furnace's Heart is a strange pistol that fires one shot that has Lance, Shock Pulse, and Burst D6, which means that if the weapon hits, it inflicts D6 additional hits. A nasty little pistol. Vulcan is simple, straightforward, and tough. He can survive some of the worst damage, recover from it, and deal it back twice as hard. Into the fires of war you go, sir. I'm just going to say this once. My Chemical Romance and Star Wars don't go together. Corvus Korax, the Primarch of the Raven Guard Legion. He is a master of infiltration, hit-and-run attacks, and assassinations. He, much like Conrad, is a weird Primarch who doesn't want to engage in a head-on fight. Korax gets a special jump pack that functions the same way as Sanguineus' wings do from earlier, but he also gets hit-and-run and deep strike. His ability Shadow Lord lets him roll an additional die to his hit-and-run roll. He and the unit he is a part of can reroll shrouded saving throws of 1, and after using hit-and-run, he can leave any combat he is in. While on the table, Corvus gives all infantry and cavalry in the Raven Guard army Scout and Crusader, meaning that the army gets to make a normal move before the game begins, and roll 2 dice when making a sweeping advance. He also gives an additional reaction during the movement phase. Corvus dons the Sable Armor, a set of armor that gives a 2+ regular save, a 4+ invulnerable save, and a shrouded 4+ save, meaning that he gets a cover save of 4+ against any weapon, except melee weapons and weapons that ignore cover. He gets 2 weapons, the Panoply of the Ravenlord and Wrath and Justice. The Panoply of the Ravenlord is a Claw Whip combination. They give Korax Shred, Blind, and Fighting Style, which allows you to add either Murderous Strike 4+, Rage 4, or Sudden Strike 3 at the beginning of the assault phase. Wrath and Justice is a special gun that acts like an auto gun and a Volkite weapon, which gives you a pistol that has Rending 3+ and Defilgrate. Corvus is the rebel assassin of his brothers, wanting to get behind the enemy and hunt down important targets, then leave just as fast as he came in. Listen, when I'm taking attendance, only one of you assholes can be Alarius, okay? Alarius, and Omegon, is the Primarch of the Alpha Legion, and is a total mystery. Though his role is the same as Korax and Conrad, while also being like Leman, he is a mastermind assassin that wants to leave your opponent's army confused and off balance. Alarius gets the Insidious Mastermind ability. Much like Leman's ability, once per turn at the start of your turn, Alarius can give every Alpha Legionnaire one of the following abilities, but unlike Leman's ability, you can use these abilities back to back. As well, at the start of the battle, Alarius can decide if he wishes to infiltrate, scout, or deep strike, and can pick up to 3 friendly units made up of Alpha Legionnaires to bring along with him. As well, all Alpha Legion units using the Infiltrator ability can pick up to 3 units to either be redeployed somewhere else or put into reserves to preserve them for later. After all the scout moves have been made, Alarius also gets to pick 1 phase to get an additional reaction in for the rest of the game. Alarius dons the Pythian Scales, an armor that gives him 2+ normal save and a 4+ invulnerable save. If Alarius is alone, any weapons hitting him that are poisoned or fleshbane gain no benefit to attacking him, meaning that those use base strengths to hurt him. If they don't have strength, they are treated as having strength 1 against him. Alarius gets 2 weapons, the Pale Spear and the Hydra's Spite. The Pale Spear is a 2-handed weapon that has armor bane and instant death, while Hydra's Spite is a plasma weapon that has rending 4+. Alarius is a master manipulator, moving and adjusting his strategies on the fly to confuse and throw off his opponents so he can go in for the kill. And that's the Primarchs. Absolutely absurd and broken hero units to bring to any game of Horus Heresy. Yes, some are clearly better than others, but these guys are meant to be godlike on the table, with very few things outside of a whole army or a few super weapons to bring them down. Double so for Primarchs like Horus, Perabo, Dorne, and Vulcan. When we come back, we will be talking about the non-Astartes armies of the Horus Heresy, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and join the Patreon to see these videos early. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.